Welcome to Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. What if you could learn from experienced real estate investors, find out what got them to where they are now, get insight into their daily habits, and take these insights to inspire your own growth? Each week, Jonathan Green shares an in-depth look at the mindful approach to real estate investing. Jonathan is a real estate investor, advisor, and coach, as well as the founder of Streamlined Properties and the team leader of Streamlined Properties on Market, brokered by eXp Realty. Whether you are looking to start from scratch, get to the next level, or just a straightforward and honest approach to real estate investing, Jonathan seeks to provide a free mentorship program you can take with you anywhere. Now, here's Jonathan.
We're back with another episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. And before I get to my guest, I just want to tell you a couple things about how the scale of the shows work. We publish on Mondays and Thursdays, so you have 2 episodes a week. If you're subscribed, which would be really awesome if you do, you'll get those in your inbox wherever you listen to podcasts, Monday and Thursday morning, like before you wake up. And then from there, about a week after that, the episodes will appear in 10-minute clips on my YouTube channel. That's Jonathan Green RE. And those are a great way to see like 4 highlights from the show. They run about like 8 to 12 minutes. They give you a nice overview. Then you can go listen to the episode, or you can do it both ways. You can listen to the episode and then watch us so you can put faces to the names. This week, my guest is Tarl Yarber, a self-described recovering house flipper. You're going to get a ton of mindful lessons on house flipping, as well as how to get in and out of that business and figure out what works for you in real estate investing. Let's go. This is episode 94 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Tarl Yarber. Tarl is a recovering house flipper with over 600 homes flipped, and we're going to talk all about it. Tarl, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jonathan. I am recovering. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah. How long has that recovery been going, and are you going to stay in recovery?
Yes, the recovery has been happening since 2018, when I had a full awakening to realize that I had a problem with flipping houses. 2018, I only had, I think, like 4 or 5 rentals out of the hundreds and hundreds of houses I flipped. And I realized, like, wait a second, like, I don't have as much wealth as I would like. If I would start keeping these properties, that would change. So I kind of coined the term, like, recovering house flipper. Like, you know, I'd go on stage, like, hey, my name is Tarl Yarber. I'm a recovering house flipper, you know, that kind of thing. Because I was working harder on the BRRRR strategy starting in 2018. Still flipped, of course, right? My market, Seattle, Tacoma, which is where I was, is definitely a very good flipping market, but cash flow was always harder. So I had to focus on the BRRRR method as much as possible to make that work.
Was part of the awakening, like you said, like wealth is the thing. Like you keep going from one to another and flipping, but they don't really become assets. They just become like income that you have to pay taxes on if you don't 1031. Yeah,
absolutely. 100%. So like a lot of it was just more, I got into the business because I just wanted to make money. Right. Yeah. And, you know, I kind of grew up, you know, from a lower, you know, I always kind of say like upper lower class. There you go. Mm-hmm. So like it always floated between low, middle class, upper, lower class, right? Just in between that bar constantly. Yeah. So like my goal was to make money, right? Like to get rich or to like not lose money kind of a thing. And so high income equated to that. And it took me a while to just realize that I was in this like spiral of constantly like wanting to make high income. And instead of like building up wealth in my balance sheet and stuff. And even though I invested in other things, like I wasn't, you know, keeping like hard assets like real estate, which was weird, like being a real estate investor, not having a whole lot of hard asset real estate, right? So big wake up call was just more of that. Plus also quality of life. Plus I didn't want to always flip all the time. Yeah. A bunch of stuff happened in 2017 to make me really hate real estate at the time and relook at what I was doing. And so it just kind of all came to a head to realize I needed to start keeping more properties.
Yeah, I think one thing to note that people who only flip on the smaller end need to know is like, if you get going and you have multiple crews, like it's hard to stop because you have so many people on salary to do flips that you almost have to like, you just have to buy more projects to keep up with the workers that you have, right? Is that part of what kind of like kept you going? You couldn't stop?
Yeah. We always say have to feed the machine, feed the beast, whatever. And like what was 27, I think it was in 2017, I'm pretty sure, because there was a bunch of stuff. We had project managers, we had staff, yes. But we also had a lot of crews that relied on us. We didn't have any in-house crews ever, construction crews. Like that's not something I ever wanted. But we had a lot
smart.
Yes. Thank you. But it was something that our general contractors, subs, and people, a lot of them, their entire businesses were around ours, right? So there was a feeling of obligation to keep these guys fed, because if we stopped feeding them, then they'd go somewhere else when we need them, right? Yeah. Additionally, we have staff. So there was a house on J Street in Tacoma. I'd give the address, but I don't want to spoil it for anybody. But where it was like the best burr property ever, right? And I was so excited about it. But then I hit one of those times in the month or in the cycle where I'm like, we had so much, because if you're doing 15, 20 projects at a time, you have a lot of capital out. At any one time, and plus include salaries, where I'm like, man, based on the cycle, because I've always been pretty good at financial projections. I was like, we need to sell this property because we're going to be in a cash crunch next month. And like the influx, we'd get 80 grand out of the deal profit wise, plus also the money we had into it, that I'm like, we had to sell it to feed the machine and and not make things like tight on us. And I was so pissed. Like, I just remember just being upset having to sell that house. Which was one of the many catalysts that made me rethink a lot of my strategies at that time. Yeah.
What was the most that you had going at a time?
27. So 27 at one time. That's for construction, like in construction.
Yeah.
There was times where we had like a lot of other deals when I was in between 2011, 12, and 13. My partners and I, we were in multiple states, and we had a lot of like very, very quick flip stuff going on during the REO days, and how we the wild, wild west back then in REO. But so I wouldn't really count. We had more than that at times, but that might be like
those are more lipstick flips.
Like, not even that, like literally like we'd buy it and sell it right away, like wholesale kind of stuff, or like nothing, but like real construction rehabs where you're spending 30 to 300,000, like 30 grand to 300,000 at a time would be 27 at once.
Yeah, I want to get your take on this, because I've always said like wholesaling as a whole has a bad rap for a good reason. But like I've always thought that the best wholesalers are people who are really good at marketing, and they're usually house flippers who they're good at marketing, so they have overage, like you were saying. So you have to wholesale some because you can't flip them all, and then it becomes a business that you didn't expect to go into.
Yeah, I would say wholesaling is a tool like on your belt, right? And so like we've wholesaled plenty, but it's mostly because like we personally didn't want the project, right? So what do you do with it? Do you just like do you just cancel your contract? Right? If it's a great deal,
right?
Like you still tie it up if you got it, right? So send it to somebody, or you can co-assign it. Some people like doing that, where the wholesaler sends it to us and he's got 10 grand on it. And they're like, well, we have a buyer. Well, why don't you give us $2,500 of that? Or we, maybe add 5 grand of our own to it to somebody else, or not, whatever. It's just like, but it's just part of the business as a strategy.
Yeah.
And more like a tool, I would see it like than anything else.
Yeah.
We heavily rely on wholesalers. Like that's my favorite way to buy properties.
Yeah. Especially once you built the relationship, they just bring you the good stuff, especially at your volume. They're just like, hey, buy this. Okay. You don't really have to hustle. You know what they need for the spread, and you know what you can make.
Wow. The professional ones. Yeah. There's plenty of amazingly eager and highly well-intentioned newer wholesalers out there that are still figuring out how to like properly figure out their numbers.
Yeah.
But one of the ways we got a lot of deals is we would help those guys out with figuring out their numbers. So they've had some loyalty to us. When the blind squirrel did find a nut, they brought it to us. So
yeah, but that's a great point, because I think like there are a lot of people who are good at marketing and maybe good at getting the property under contract, but there's no reason why they would understand repair costs. And
exactly.
Like you can't just read the book, Jay Scott's book, and just like know the
Great
answer.
book.
Like, yeah, it's great. But like you can't know, because your locality is going to be different. You don't know how much it is to move a wall and things like that. So a lot of times when I'm looking at like wholesale deals, I'm like, this is like 80,000 off on the repair, and then the ARV is way too high because they don't have MLS access. They're just like making stuff up.
Yeah, they're like, it's lipstick. And you're like, every inch of the house is covered in mold.
Yeah. I think their definition of lipstick and ours is just a little bit different.
Totally.
Yeah. So when you had 27 flips going, were those 27 separate crews, or were there some that were hopping property to property?
What I found with construction is it's very, very, not just I would say state specific, more so than city specific.
Mm-hmm.
And every state has its different regulations, which also like kind of creates its own, like, I don't know, lack of a better word, of like challenges or benefits of that area when it comes to construction crews.
Yeah.
So when we used to do stuff in Florida, for instance, we had crews that can do tons of houses at one time because there's some bigger shops there that are used that can also get like lower cost labor at the time and materials or whatever. They could run a bunch of projects at once. Now, a lot of times in Florida is because they're like one of the strictest states for licensing for construction. But there's also a ton of dudes out there that like just pay somebody with a license to like use their license too. But so you gotta watch out for that, which is normal. But whatever.
I did 14 years in Florida, so
I'm
aware. A lot of licenses on top of just a full crew of day workers. Yeah,
totally. But but some of those guys know how to do their stuff, right?
Yeah,
we never had that ever in Seattle, right? We had, because Seattle's a little different, one besides a lot of, I don't want to get into it, never mind. But let's just put it this way. The state of Washington, in a sense, has no licensing requirement for construction. So you can get your GC license, your general contractor's license in the state of Washington by walking into a labor and industries office, paying, I don't know if it's what it is today, but I know when I walked in there, it was $115 to apply for a GC license and then just prove you had a bond and insurance. And you walked out 30 minutes later as a general contractor. So
pretty much like that in New Jersey still.
Yeah. So like you no skill, no nothing. I'm a GC. Let's go. Right. Because I had to do that. What's crazy with Washington though, like is L&I for a period, labor and industries for a period of time required you, if you're flipping a house for profit, you had to have your GC license with the state. And which it was a total money grab, like straight up
because you don't even have to do anything to get it.
Oh, it's stupid, right? Like, and the only reason why I got it was it got the target off. We had like a lot of audits with L&I, but whatever.
Yeah.
Like you get the target on your back or whatever. So I just got it just to like show it off and everything, but whatever. But it was so dumb, right? So that said though, there was a lot of small contractors in Washington that like one guy with a truck or one guy with two buddies. And the problem with construction and fix and flip is that we want the best quality, but we are definitely not willing to pay for it at all when you're flipping houses, right? It's in complete contradiction of the whole point of flipping a house is to like spend as little as possible, right?
Right, and so, speed doesn't connotate with care. And we want to go fast.
A lot of us have heard the thing like, hey, in construction, everybody wants fast, cheap quality, pick two, right? You're never going to get all three. And for me, I was like, okay, I want affordable quality, which means I gave away speed. So to go full circle back on your question, sorry for the long diatribe on this.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Most of the time, like we'd have guys that never were able to do more than maybe 3 projects at a time, maybe 4 at most. We definitely, when we were doing more cosmetic between like 2013, 14, 15 kind of stuff, we were able to get away with like a GC company that did more than that because we're doing, but then we'd have houses that had like none of the finishes matched because the GC, we were just letting them pick out the shit. Like, and it like was now I would never do that in a heart ever.
But that's funny though. You can tell that the second that you walk in, if you've been in the business, you're like, oh, look at this. Like they were just like, what did they have on the truck that day to put in for counters or something?
Like, 4 different types of vanities, 6 different faucets. Like it's just whatever they had, right? Like it's just, and they sold back then.
Yeah.
It wouldn't fly today. But so yeah, we had a recruit contractor. It was a revolving door, right? But the ones that we relied on the most, right? We always kept busy. But that was always a pain when you had that many projects, was to find like guys that could show up and you're building those relationships, contractors, managing it. Like even if you hired a GC to do 100% of the job, and you had that many projects, that's a lot of GCs that you have to manage.
Yeah.
And different scopes of work and finishes and all that stuff. And so, yeah, most people don't get into flipping houses because they would love construction, right? But yet you're never going to be successful at it unless you or somebody on your team is an expert in construction. So.
Yeah. And I think the attention to detail is what over time obviously makes the most money, builds the best reputation. Because you can see when people are like, you're like, oh, this is a first flip. Or they really like you just open up the MLS and you're like, oh my God, seriously? Like this is how long this is like a 1-week flip that needed like 3 months.
Yeah, if you want to spend the whole podcast talking crap about like house flippers, I can do that. Like I am on point with you on that. Let's do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what do you think like right now in today's market? Like obviously I've slowed down flipping a lot just because the deals just don't look like they're just not good for me because at least in my area, this is a great one to talk about though with you. So like in my area, like first time home buyers were buying all the flips because they were getting horrendous advice and they were desperate. So I'm looking at something that needs 100. They're there with a realtor saying, oh, this is like 15,000. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, And they were buying. I mean, they were just so desperate. They were buying it all. So they're, I can't compete with a first-time home buyer. I'm not going to pay that. Did you find that as you were still going through the few properties they were flipping?
Yeah, I mean, Seattle is like it's one of the hottest markets in the entire U.S. for a long time. Tacoma became in 2015-16 became one of the hottest appreciating markets as well, which was my neck of the woods that I really, really did a lot of my work in. But at 17, 18, so like anyway, so like I definitely got the hockey stick portion of Seattle being there. But towards the end of it, and even today, right, like people, houses sit on market, right, and the people buying it, like. When it comes to, it's a little different today with like the fixer uppers, but where in my market, like if somebody sends me an MLS deal on my market that looks like a fixer upper and nobody's bought it yet, then I'm not buying it. Like I don't know if that's contradictory, like so that's like I'm like something's wrong with it. So why hasn't anybody else bought it? Because there's plenty of people in my market with extreme focus, combing that stuff like hard freaking core all the time, right?
Right.
And I'm not, right? So if there's somebody sending me it, I'm like, okay, my buddy James Daner, who's up there, he's probably already looked at this.
Yeah.
And he didn't buy it. Like, then I'm why he hasn't sent it to me yet. So therefore we probably shouldn't buy it. So, but to that point though, like in 2022, more 2021. Yeah. I mean, you had people that were homeowners just going like, I just need to get in a house and I'll buy it and fix it up when I live in it because at least I got a house, right? Because that's all they can do. What that also did is the off-market stuff is that the off-market homes, the sellers knew what they had like a bit more. And so, and he also, what was crazy, my market, people always say their market's competitive. Like I get it, but we could trade war stories and competition. Seattle is like, there's very few markets that were more competitive than Seattle, Tacoma. And you had wholesalers you had off-market properties that would have 7 to 10 people bidding each other up on an off-market property before they even got it under contract, which they would then send it out to the masses for wholesaling, which would then be like, it was just, and they'd all shit on each other. Like, anyways, it was great to watch, but massive competitions off-market, more so than even on-market. But so because the sellers knew what they had, right? And the only time that you'd have it to where the sellers didn't is, extreme circumstances like, probate, foreclosure, things like that. Or, only reason why Seattle ever really truly worked out in the height of the market in 2020, 21, 22 was because a lot of the properties are 100-year-old homes. So you built your value through the extreme rehab, or you built your value by adding square footage, or you dug the basement out, or you did something where you might have bought the 3-bedroom, 2-bath Craftsman home at full price, but the value add was the fact that it hasn't been updated since 1950 and it has an unfinished basement. So your as is value is the same as you bought it for. So, but you did you did the value add through the rehab. Today, like I just think it's actually more predictable, to be honest with you. So that's how I see it, is that it's just that there's that lag of sellers still thinking the house is worth a certain amount or whatever, or like it goes on market, should sell within 5 days. When it's sold now, it's not, right? So there's a lag there for that situation.
Yeah.
But it also makes house flippers more gun shy from pulling the trigger because we're not sure if the knife stopped falling yet, if it's leveled out, like, or if rates are going to be 7.5% or 8%. Like, is it going to stay that way? Like, is it going to get to 10? Like, so what I found is that the people that were newer and it got started in 2020 and 21 or 2019, some of those people are still flipping. The savvy, like I would say savvy, sorry, the more like veteran that have been through it are the ones that I've seen that are more on the sideline than anything, because they're like, hey, I've built a lot of stuff. I don't want to risk it now, or like kind of a situation. So that's what I've seen, at least. But then you got guys like my buddy Jimmy in Seattle, who's just like, I don't care, let's go, right? But
he's feeding the machine, like he said. His machine is unstoppable. So, but
he's also like, he's amazing at what he does. Like, so I'll never say otherwise. I've seen what he does. I know exactly what he does. He's awesome. But it's also dollar cost averaging at that same time when you think about where you can't time the market, right? Like, so it's sure, you might buy, like last year I had roughly 150 grand lost on houses for myself. Does that mean that like I shouldn't buy another house? It just means that this year I'm just repricing it at a different price, and next year I'll reprice it at another price, and next year I'll reprice, like, and I'm just like, over time, if I'm in this business for 20 years, what's 2 years of problems, right? Yeah, it's a different perspective thinking long term that way. But
Yeah. I think, I mean, a lot of people say investors who haven't been through like run down cycle really like don't understand what's coming because they're not expecting it. Like you said, the people who like crushed it on a couple flips during the pandemic because they hit the high thing. And now we're at the part where, you know, you were talking about, like, I always call it a cliff because I feel like there's this part where sellers are still hopped up on themselves, but there's a cliff waiting for them. And just one day, like they're just not getting it. And the buyers are just going to say like, yeah, no, like we don't want your crappy flip anymore. Like it has to be the best. So to be the best, then you have to buy higher and spend more. And then you can be stuck because then they're going to price, you know, way too high, you know, high rates. And then they, you know, they overthink it. Like, okay, great. Rates are going to come down. Prices are going to go up. I don't know. In my area, it's very competitive, similar though. We have 20, 30 offers on an off market property, you know, in the first couple of days of people who never should be making offers, you know, hard money letters that are like 15% and 3 points. Like, I mean, please don't do that. Please don't buy this. You're never going to make it. But it's tough. I mean, do you think like for someone who wants to get into flipping right now, is there an avenue for them to get in? I mean, somewhere in the country there probably is, but like it's still valuable. I still think it has a scale.
So I mean, I said this. I was on the BP on the Market podcast that you know. So not to keep bringing up Jimmy, but whatever.
Yeah,
him and I agreed.
listen to that every one. That's such a good one. Cool.
Yeah. Him and I fully agreed. I was like, I 100% agree with you. Can flip in every market right now. Like in my absolutely. You pick a market, and I was like, and give me a few weeks, we can start flipping there. Like it's just knowing there's always a way to find a deal. There's always a way to squeeze in the value. There's always a way to do it somewhere. Like if you have the criteria and you know the market, you know the areas, and you know how to get the deal and do the rehab. Like you just might not make 20%. Maybe you're making 10, or maybe you're making 15, or maybe like it's just a different. You're just looking. You're not going to go get the $400,000 house that sells for $500 on market over ask, right? You'll sell for $400 with 3% seller concessions after sitting on market for 60 days. Like
that sounds terrible.
But that's what it's going to be, right? Like so, it's like all right. Then you just budget that into your P&L, right, and your profit and loss street. So it's like that's how I grew up in the business. Was like, oh, that's what you do, right? You just assume 90 days on market, like. That was just normal. And especially in some of the areas that I was doing business in a lot in 2011, 2012 was like, 90 days on market, whatever. Like that's what you're supposed to do. And 60 days, oh my God, that's so fast. Like that's how it felt because this is nobody was buying, right? And the other thing I just wrote about this where it's like when deals are prevalent, right? Money is hard to come by. And when money is easy to come by, deals are prevalent, right? So and right now, money's hard to come by and deals are hard to come by. So we're this transition period of one or the other is going to give, right? But even in that transition period, you can still find the deals. Like it's just a little bit harder.
I think it's a consistency thing. Like if you're really in it for the long term, you're just always looking because you never know when someone's really going to need to get out or somebody's just going to, you know, have an overage. Like we were saying in the beginning, like, hey, one of your friends is like, you know what, I can't take this on. This is a real screamer. Just take it. And there you have it. You know, you don't, if you're just on wholesalers lists, like you said, I don't think people realize, hopefully this will help people. But if you're just getting the email from the wholesaler, that's like third servings. It's already
if you're not
gone
getting
through
the text message or the phone call.
Right. They're like, it's the same thing where someone comes with like you were saying with the MLS, you know, like a new investor will send me a property. They're like, I can't believe this is the one. It's been on 330 days. And I'll say, why did every investor in the area and one of the highest investor concentrations, they all passed? And you think you as a first-time investor, this is a good one for you?
Yeah, at full
Let's
price.
Let's go look at the basement.
At full price. Yeah. So exactly. Like that's just be leery. Now it's not because nobody saw it, but like, no, I don't want to like, you know, talk too bad about that because at the same time, there are those diamonds in the rough where like
it can happen.
It got missed. The MLS data was wrong, right? It had it as a 2-bedroom when in reality it's a 3-bedroom. Or like, you know, stuff which is great. Like it didn't show that it had an unfinished basement or like, you know, that's the Seattle thing. But
but
that's extremely rare.
The MLS sneaky ones are the ones with only one photo. Most of the time, they're going to be a disaster. But once in a while, you show up and you're like, oh my, like, really? This isn't bad. And then you know you're like a little bit ahead of the curve on that one.
You're like, yes, offer right now, full price, let's go.
Right.
But that's rare, as we both know. So, but it happens every now and then.
Yeah. So transitioning from flipping though, what's your main focus now? Is it still Burr or is that just harder now? I mean, again, it's the same. I think it's available at all times as long as you're good, finding the deals.
Yeah, good. I agree with that. Like, I think that what I've been telling some buddies that are, used to keeping properties and flipping, is just like, you just got to go flip one or two more houses and then keep the next one, right? So if you maybe flip two and you kept one, now maybe you flip four and keep one. But the concept that I try to live with these days since 2018 basically is, what would my future self thank me for, right? And my future self is going to have a vote sooner or later, but right now it's not today. So like, am I going to regret selling this property, or am I going to be happy selling this property? Like, my future self going to thank me for keeping it or be pissed off that I sold it? Like, and that's kind of my own barometer of dealing with it. Now, cash flow is a thing, right? Like, I will not keep a property that's a negative cash flow property. So, but that might mean that I can't do a full 75% LTV cash out refi on the back end. I might only be able to do a 55%, right, to make it work out. So that means I got to leave more skin in the game, which means that if I can't, then I can't, right? And I have to say, like, all right, well, what kind of return am I getting on the money I'm leaving in there? Maybe it's not a lot, but maybe it's in a great up and coming area, path of progress, thinking 5-10 years out. Like, if I don't, it's one thing, like, you need the money, then okay, you need the money, right? Cool. You can't keep it. That sucks, right? Maybe figure out a different way. Who knows? What I'm focused on today more than anything is trying to overcome that. And the way that I've overcome it, believe it or not, is just have a lot of other people's money. So, which is through the process of a fund. So we have a company, Fixated Capital, which we're about to start really raising for it. So we already started buying, and the fund allows us to keep the property. So we don't need a fund at all to flip properties. We can do all that stuff that are normal traditional ways, but keeping them is a lot easier cash. And if I don't have, I don't know, 20 million sitting around to keep a bunch of properties cash, right, liquid, then I kind of need to raise it from other people so I can keep it as cash, which means I'm giving away more, right? And I'd actually make more money just buying 10 properties myself cash than having a fund buy 50 properties and me just be the GP of it. So but for the long haul, that's what we're doing right now, and we're in different markets for it too. We're already buying properties in 2 of those markets without the fund, and then we'll just we'll just open up shop there very, very soon.
But does it help you? Because I've always found, like, as I've gone through my flipping journey, I used to flip at a lower price point, and then obviously my margins were less. But then the higher you buy in, the higher the much more you can make. So to have a fund to be able to support that, like, closer to $1 million type of buy-ins, like, you can always make a lot of money on those. It's just that most people can't do it. Because it's hard for like just a regular house flipper who's not a developer to just like keep knocking out like 800,000s where they're going to eventually sell it for, 1.5, 1.7. But that's all. When I moved from like a 300 model, which was 300 buy, 60 reno, 60 profit. And then you move up to, like, my last one was like a 550 buy, put in 180, but make 200. Like that's really good in 6 months. But I was still looking for ones with like oddities, like one needed a septic, one needed structural, because those are the ones that will, the first time home buyers will do an inspection and then like jump off a bridge because they can't. They didn't realize it was going to be so much. But does it help you do that so you can focus on higher end properties, or just turn more?
It's a different thought process. This is not relatable to everybody that's not going to go start a fund tomorrow, but like basically you're looking at a blend of returns. So the ROI is the most important thing, not the cash. And so it's sure, you might make the 200 on a property, but if that's only a 12%, as an example, then it's not a good property. And versus we might make 30 on a property. If that's a 20%, then that's a good property. Like, so it becomes an ROI play more so than a cash play. And it's a blend. Like, so you might have some ups and downs, but like what kind of gives us some flexibility on it, why I'm actually like enjoying it so far, is that it makes it to where like we can keep a property all cash, not having to worry about the interest rates. So it makes our competitiveness on BRRRRs just like, I mean, basically it's a BRRRR, but without the last, or the second to last R, which is the refinance, right?
Little, so, you're just a little cold, Yeah,
exactly, right? So like it makes it to where we can just keep it and then worry about refinancing later when the rates change, which might be 7 years from now, it might be 8 years. Like, that's just part of the game. And if it's capping at a 9 cap, right, at the cost basis that we bought the property at and rehabbed it at, and then great, let's keep it. And even if it only got like a 12% or 13% cash on the flips, but it's cash flowing at a 9 or 10, that doesn't matter. Oh, cool. We're keeping the property.
Yeah.
On the other side, if it's a flip, let's say that the cap's like 3, right? But the flip is 20, then we sell it, we flip it, and we put it back into the fund and move on, right?
Yeah.
So it gives us a lot more flexibility that way, reducing risk actually quite a bit. And it's just what we've always done, but just with a bigger pot. But the conflict and stuff, like for me internally, and why I never did this before, was because you can make more money if you just have private money lenders and versus a fund and giving it away. So people like, I'm saying this for people listening more than anything, is that like, having 1 or 2 private money lenders that can give you a few $100,000 every now and then, like, is actually a lot more profitable than having a fund giving away 60-70% of everything to LPs and then splitting that with your GPs that are with you, and you get like 10%, right? So which is why I never ever started a fund. And the only reason why we started was so that we want to keep these properties on the book cash. And the only way that it works is with a fund. So,
yeah, but I mean, I think like the reason why people get into funds and any type of syndication is so they can be, hopefully a little bit more passive. But for this, it kind of makes it more interesting because, a lot of funds are boring. They're not going to be in the full renovation. But multifamily, like if you're doing a whole reno, it's still different. But if you're mixing in, a couple different type of asset types and some flips that you could sell, maybe they feel like they're more a part of the journey when they can't do it themselves. They can't be on site. They don't have time to do a flip. Because I've always found like, flips are like fun. I've like always been into aesthetics. So like, I love the way they look. I spend too much on flips because I can't stop. I want it to be like perfect, but then there's other things where you just, you have to like pump the brakes. But do you think it gives those people like an eye into what they could do, but they just don't have the time to do it?
Yeah. I mean, that was always the thing with me getting private money lenders and people that did joint venture deals with me or whatever, was like they had liquidity, they had capital, but they didn't have the time or expertise.
Yeah.
Like I have a bunch of videos on this where it's like, you need 3 things to do real estate. You need time, money, and expertise, right? But you don't have to have all 3, right? So like there's a period of time where I was just the expertise, which meant I hired out the time with my team and then I borrowed money from everybody else. So then there was a period of time in my career where I only had time and no expertise. That's when I door knocked at age 20 doing my wholesale deals. Yeah. And so I just knocked on doors, right? And tried to figure it out. I had time. So so these people might be the ones with the money that don't have the expertise yet or the time, or they do have the expertise. Like one of my best private money lenders is an older gentleman in his 80s. He has the expertise. He just doesn't ever want to deal with this shit anymore ever. So he'd just rather give away the money because he has a whole bunch of money. Yeah. So that's a good spot, right? But great guy to know too. But but like that situation, right? That can scale somebody's business up dramatically better than a fund if they're just a single family operator, which is go find people that you can JV with or borrow money from, like at a guaranteed interest rate of some sort, like as a private money lender. And it just makes it a lot easier to get away from having to worry about like rate fluctuations and hard money lenders tightening their stuff up a ton. And which is we have a hard money company too. So we see that side. And so anyways, I'm rambling now, but that's kind of. But
a lot of private money is like fully relationship based. I mean, now over your career, which has spanned, a decent amount of time now, how important have like relationship building inside real estate investing been to you? Because we've talked about a few different people, but tell us about that, because I'm always trying to tell newer investors they're crunching numbers, and I'm like, go meet people.
Absolutely.
Stop fucking around on the spreadsheet and just meet other investors.
Even just meet the realtor that you're at the house that you're looking at online for the last 3 weeks, right? Like just go see it.
Right. So what are you so scared of?
People don't want to look like they don't know what they're talking about. So there's that, right? For sure. So inferiority, that kind of thing. But yes, networking has been everything to me. And it's been more important than anything else in my business, because even through networking introduces me to people that know what they're doing so I could pick their brain. Yeah. Also, like when I get audited by LNI in Washington for the first time, and I'm like, oh, what do I do? Who do I call? I call another investor I met that I know has been audited by LNI and say, what can I expect? Do you have an attorney? Like, what's up, right? So networking is huge. What I found, though, if we speak specifically to private money lenders and finding those people on a relationship side, like I didn't have a social media account for any of my real estate stuff, or even a website for my business, until we got to like deal 500. And we're actually, I'm not even kidding you, like at all. Technically, I mean, like we've done about 670, 680, give or take. We who's counting? But that's pretty much what it is. But never cared, and I never would have it except for 2 things. I got invited on the Bigger Pockets podcast, episode 189.
Yeah.
My team was like, oh my God, you're going to have thousands of people hit you up because of that podcast. We need some sort of website. I'm like, why? Why do I want people to hit me up? Like, are they in Tacoma? Are they going to wholesale a deal to me or something?
Yeah.
And they're like, we just need that. I'm like, all right, fine. So I let them go build a website, which we never used. And then 2, they'd started a company Facebook page so that they can show some of the stuff we were doing. And they started doing that. I didn't do any of that stuff.
Yeah.
They did that. And then I'd be at a property bitching about something and they started recording me and then they just like put it on the page. And this is back when Facebook algorithm like actually let your followers see your stuff.
Yeah.
It's
the good old days where you could see stuff that your friends did.
Correct, right? Yeah. And the companies you follow, right? Like, but so that's the only reason. It's because I got on the podcast. The only reason why we kept it is because I started an events company. So, and I wanted to sell tickets to people. So that's the only reason why we kept it. Never the real estate side of it. In fact, what I think it did for me, I didn't get private money lenders out of it. Like the private money lenders that I've used the most out of are people that I met through relationships in the business. My attorney referring me out to people, other people referring me out to people, like people finding me out, like just all that kind of stuff. But that's what got me the lenders. But in reality, like, you know, I just wanted to sell tickets to people. So I'm like, we had a meetup. We started a big, huge meetup in Seattle. It became the largest one at the time until COVID, and then we shut it all down. That was just to like keep those people coming back. I think it actually hurt my business locally because we were so integrated and networked with people face to face, kneecap to kneecap, that I'd go to the meetups. My team would go to the meetups, other people's stuff. And we would go take them out to coffee and we'd take them to our properties and we'd like integrate ourselves with the people and we would help them out all the time because they would send us the deals. As soon as I became like known, where I was doing in 2019, I did the Big Badass Real Estate Wealth Expo in Seattle, where I had 1,100 plus people there at my event. I'm untouchable, right? That's how I'm perceived. At my own meetups, where I'm the one running the meetup, where we have 200-300 people at the meetup, everybody else was trading deals with each other and not me, right? Because Tarl was scary, right? Yeah. And he already has all his stuff together. So let me go give it to somebody else. I'd be like, no, bring it to me. So we would have actually, I think, right, in reality, been better off just sitting there, kept keeping to our guns of just like, doing our kneecap to kneecap networking versus like, look at me on social media. So there are benefits to doing the social media stuff. I don't know how we're going. I'm sorry. Private money. There you go. Here's what helps with private money.
Well, they are tied together. They really are these days.
How I got all my private money lenders that actually like, and we had pretty much as much capital as we ever want on a private money lending side, was because when I would get that meeting somehow, whether it was through a referral or, maybe meeting them somewhere, like they go where they go, like golf courses or whatever. Yeah. And I do get that opportunity. All I would do is pick up my phone or my tablet and show them how my business ran. Like I would be like, this is easy. Here's the 18 projects I currently have, and I could show you anything going on with them right now. So that's the systems and process. Here's my Asana projects. You can see the communication with my team on this one project. Here's our pictures of what's going on with that one project and how I can look up you want to see the last, 300 I did, right? Like, let me show you those ones, right? And they were able to look at me in the eye within 5-10 minutes and go like, you have a real business. I don't need to see anything else. Because a private money lender just wants to know, are you going to pay them back, right?
Right. Yeah. Are you reliable? Do you have a history? Can you show proof of history?
Correct.
But to tie that in with social media, though, do you think it's different now? Because with social media, like everybody looks like they're killing it. I always talk about it. And then I'm like, I don't think they're killing it,
No.
Hey, it's Jonathan. This is just a brief interlude to talk to you about Deal Machine. Listen, I've used Deal Machine and I was crushing it with my Concerned Citizen postcard on Deal Machine. You can look that video up on my YouTube and find out how I did it. It works. Deal Machine works. I've had David Lecko, the CEO, on the podcast. So if you want a free trial of Deal Machine, the elite Driving for Dollars app, and I'm telling you, it works if you use it correctly, you can go to my link at bit.ly/Zen Deal Machine. Now, bit.ly is bit.ly/Zen Deal Machine. It's free and you'll be up and running in 2 minutes, and then you can figure out if you want to keep it. Let's get back to the show. How do we help people get through the noise of social media and then get to that point where they're like, I mean, if you can show them all those deals, like, yeah, that's a no-brainer. But like, a lot of stuff looks cool on social media, but I'm not that into it.
I have had so many deer in headlight looks from newer investors when they come to, like at BPCon the other week when you and I met each other in person.
Yeah.
Where I'd be like, hey, those people can lie on social media, right? Like I tell people that shit all the time. I'm like,
yeah, me too.
I'm like, hey, why do you think I'm cool? For all you know, I'm bullshitting you. Like, have you seen any of my projects? Like, are they even mine?
Yeah.
Like, spoiler alert,
right.
HGTV shows, I know for a fact, because I got friends on those shows, that sometimes those houses aren't theirs because they don't have enough houses going on to show on HGTV. Like,
yeah.
And Santa Claus isn't real too. Did you know that? Like, that's the, it's I'm not trying to be a dick, but like,
no, it's very true. I mean, I think the same thing.
I think it's funny. Like when people started coming up and wanted pictures of me, which I totally appreciate. I think I'm not trying to knock on that. I mean, I'm actually a really, really nice guy in person. I swear. It was weird because I'm just a real estate investor that started posting stuff, or my team started posting stuff on social media. And I went on on Bigger Pockets podcast. I'm friends with Brandon Turner and all these other guys. Yeah. So all of a sudden, like I'm this thing, right? I'm like, I could be blowing smoke up of everybody's butt. And you would never know, right? So it's humorous to me. It's my satire side, just like, can't stand. But I mean, I think that's helpful to people, so they do more vetting. Like there is lots of stuff that look cool. Like, look, Lamborghinis look cool, but like I don't think a lot of people own those outright. No,
I mean, like it's just a thing that I don't agree. So it's like it's really about, like, to me, the reason I love podcasts, like if we can have a conversation for 45 to 60 minutes, like people can tell whether we're bullshit or not, because you just can't talk that long if you have no background, like you're just going to end and it's going to be silence at some point. But when you can hear someone do it, you're like, oh, okay, Tarl really actually knows what he's talking about.
Dude, there's this guy I'm not going to say his name, but there's this guy that was in Seattle that I knew was total BS. And so did a couple of us. And he got on the BP podcast because he was so good at like blowing smoke. Yeah. And I just remember listening to it going like, this guy is foolish. So bad. And you could tell this was back when Josh Dorkin was on it too with Brandon. Yeah. The questions Brandon and Josh were asking was like their spider senses were up. You could tell. They pulled the podcast like down like a month later when they realized like enough people complained like this guy's like BS. But you could tell like Josh and Brandon were being nice, but they were like digging in on some of the stuff this guy was saying, go like, wait, hold on. And they started asking more questions. And I'm like, oh, get him. But anyways, you can just tell from the, I'll hopefully tell if you're, not always, because if you're newer, you might not know like what's wrong and what's right and stuff. But
yeah. But I mean, 60 minutes of content though is like really hard to fake it. It's not all clipped together and just made good with the things, and it's also history. Like I think there can be like really good newer real estate investors who know what they're doing and they figured out the systems, but still history is going to always beat that in some ways, because you have to ride the wave of what it is and you have to understand exit strategies. Have multiple exit strategies been really important to you? So like, if the flip numbers aren't there in the end for sale, or the market changes and you have to pivot to either regular rental or short-term or midterm, is that always something that you would tell people like, listen, you need to have a backup plan on this, especially when you're flipping?
Yeah, I didn't always do that because I for a long time, I wish I had. It was all about like, what's your focus, right? Like I've done a lot of emergency medicine, like I don't love people getting hurt, but I definitely enjoy emergency medicine and EMT stuff. I was ski patrol for a very long time. And the thing that you'd get a scene, you'd get scene tunnel vision, you get tunnel vision on a scene. Like you come across somebody like injured and you see blood, right? So you like people that aren't used to that get tunnel vision and they only see that blood, but they might not see that there's 3 other people injured around there, but you only see the one person in the blood. So you get total tunnel vision. Yeah. So it happens all the time, right? I can't remember. My mind's going blank. There's actually a term we use on the field. But
I was thinking of in car crash, I was thinking of rubbernecking because that's what I think. You look at the one car and then there's like 3 cars crashed with people like right in front of it, but you can't see it. Similar,
because it's not your brain is not able to process it because it's not what you're used to. Like this, right. I could go on a whole rant about like emergency situations and how we're not trained for that. We all think one day we will. Like it's not the case. You're going to all be weird. But the same thing happened to me with house flipping. I only saw flipping. That's it. I only saw flip. There was no other peripheral other than every project we look at as a flip and only a flip because that's what we do. We flip. And what it did for me was make me a lot of money, yes. But I also, when I go back in time and look at projects, right? I have a whole PowerPoint that I did on this one day where just because I hated myself or something, I wanted to do it. But where I show like, look at these projects that sold and what we made. Wow, that's so cool. 18%, 22%. But look at the project closer and what we could have done if we kept it, such as, I don't know, build 22 houses on it while we were keeping it as a burr with no money into it. If we would have just done that, like, or just all these things that we just never. I owned a house. I still own this house, actually, that I bought in 2016. It wasn't until 2021, so almost 5 years, that I realized that all the other houses in in that neighborhood were houses that were much smaller lots than mine, and also were flag lots everywhere and all that stuff. And I'm like, I looked at a Google map again. I'm like, wait, I think we could do that. Like, and 5 years like went by, and like it took me. In the city that it's in, it took less than 60 days to create a flag lot on this property and be able to build a duplex on the other lot. Right?
Oh,
like,
wow. Yeah.
5 years. Like that's because
at least you figured it out though. I know before you said it was partly, just like it was too much flipping, but what were the other parts of that realization? Like, this is too much, because you're right in that area now too. And there's always, I think for a lot of investors, there's times like I shut down in 2008, like, I got killed on 2 like personal residents, but like everyone did. So like it was fine. I still probably made money overall, but I didn't make as much as I thought I was going to make. But I took a little break. What was it in that time frame? What else helped you kind of change the mindset? Because if you stayed down that path, you probably wouldn't be living the kind of life that you are now, which is better type of life, like you said.
Better quality life, yeah. So in 2017, we did, I don't know, 37, 38 projects, something like that. I'd have to look it up. And in 2016, we did about the same, give or take, but they were smaller projects. Mm-hmm. And so we made more money in 2017 as a business than we did in 2016 as a business. And we did way more construction, way more we had more staff in 2017, and our projects were twice as big, and like the margins were big. But Tarl Yarber made the same amount of money.
Yeah, that's important.
The company profited the same amount of money. I mean, like net profit, not gross profit. Gross profit, it went up quite a bit, right? That's like before your internal overhead and costs and stuff like that. But Tarl made the same, and I'm selfish. And I'm looking at that, and I worked harder, and I had more stress in 2017 than I did in 2016.
Yeah.
And I remember, so that was another catalyst. So the couple catalysts going on with this, right? Like, so that's another catalyst. Like I had to sell a house that I didn't want to sell, right? I had more stress. I had a project manager that I trusted, big time. And I found out that the person was stealing from us, right? Which is where the way that they were stealing, by the way. Yeah. I mean, like it's also a gray area how they were doing it, but essentially it was where they would, let's say a trash out. This is actually a real life example. A trash out budget was like $3,500 on a heavy budget. So they would get a guy to do it for $2,000 and keep the difference. Yeah. So
contractors do that. I mean, it's not just the PMs. I've always found like we GC our own jobs, and we have all our own subs. Like we know them, like we have our own electrician, like they have no tie to the actual just carpenter. It's a main carpenter. And that helped me a lot because I didn't have that. Hey, why is that guy's not a plumber? They're an assistant plumber, but we're paying for a plumber. So they're cashing in half of that check. So that makes sense to me.
Yeah. And if the guy that we had as PM for a long time was a former GC, but and in a GC business, that's how you make your money is you bid $3,500 and go get somebody to do it for 10 too, right? Like that's how you make it.
Exactly.
But when you have a salary plus bonus and everything, you're making 6 figures already from working for me as a full-time employee. You don't then also skim from the top too, right? So that happens. And then my wife and I had some, challenges a little bit, which were perfect now. And then all these things stacked up all at once. And I already hated what I did. Yeah, right? Yeah. I never liked it. Right. Yeah. And I was burning out. My wife and I never saw each other. All we wanted to do was be together also. Just everything was coming to a head. I was really pissed. And I go to Thatch Nguyen. Thatch Nguyen's one of those social media superstars, but he's actually the real deal, just like James Daynard and stuff. Yeah. Thatch is legit, full on, we'll vouch for him. And Thatch was a buddy of mine. So in 2017, October, he says to me, he's like, hey, Tarl, most people build their business first, and then whatever life they have left over, that's how they live it. But what if you just build your life and design it the way you want it to be first, and why don't you write all that shit out and then make your business fit your ideal lifestyle? And I'm like, right place, right time, right? Because somebody could have said that 6 months earlier and I'd be like, dumb,
I don't
and move
have,
on, right?
I don't have time. Yeah.
Don't have time, whatever. What do you say? Okay, Tony Robbins, like,
Yeah.
But it hit me like a lightning bolt when I still vividly, crystal clear remember where I was sitting, my everything, like in that moment, how the room looked when he said that to me. And I was like, what? And totally, as soon as him and I were done, I left, called my wife, and I'm like, blah, 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 this is what we're going to do, right? And I'm like, we're going to put your paper out this weekend. We're going to do this. We're going to like, and I forced her to do it. We did it together. And over the course of about 3-4 weekends, we had butcher paper out, and we kept how do we want our life to be? What do we want? What's our ideal situation? And we had some very hard conversations. And at the end of it, we said, I want to do less. I want to be able to travel whenever I want, wherever I want. I want to do, I want to be able to work from my phone only. We need to keep more houses and have more wealth so we can have more passive income in our lives and not just active. So we don't have to be there. We need a team that's autonomous from us, for us physically not having to be ever at anything. Like all these things. And then we wanted to run a big, huge event every year that did a lot of money for charity, which we've done well over $1 million for charity so far from our events.
Awesome.
So we listed all this out. And I could tell you full confidence, like in 2018, we did everything that we put in our list. But the thing that changed the most for us was, like, at that moment, my wife wasn't at all in the business, really. She just like helped out with the events company every now and then.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, if we're going to live this lifestyle, what's the first thing we need to do? And she's like, I need to quit my job. And because she loved what she did, but she loved the idea of being with me every day and us doing what we want for the rest of our lives.
Doing it together. Yeah.
And so she quit her job the next day and put her 2 weeks notice in. And her last day was in November 2017. So I then scaled back. This is the hard part for people to accept is, you go from making 7 figures to being okay making 6 figures. Yeah. And which means I had to make less money. Because if you're keeping properties, you're actually making less money. And if you're creating
more assets, though,
correct.
But
if you're flipping
different.
30, totally. If you're flipping 30, making 7 figures, and instead you flip 15, but you still do 30 projects and you keep the other 15, your balance sheet went up, but your income went down, and it feels like you've lost money or you made less. When in reality, it's different
in the beginning. But then it's wealth versus income. Like what's wealth, what's income, and that's the. Correct. It's funny though because I'm reading 10x is easier than 2x now, and it's exactly like what you're saying. In order to go bigger, you just have to cut out all the garbage that you didn't really like doing anyway, and just focus on the things that you like the best, which does require you to make some hard choices to say like, hey, like for me, like I need to step away from some stuff. Like you said, like you're making a decision, like I can't be involved in the day to day. It drives me insane. That's why I need a buffer for everything because I don't want to be like stressed out all the time.
Totally.
It's too much.
It's too much. And it's really just being clear about what's more important to you, right? Because it's your life, right? And although I saw a funny meme, I like memes, where it's like, we have one life to live. So you better be on your computer all the time as much as possible because you can't be on it after you die, right? And so like, it was just funny. Like I thought I was going to go somewhere else, but like that's a good point. You should be on your computer as much as possible. Yeah. But like we are right now. But we all have, in theory, one life to live, right? So if that's the case, then like, how are you living it? And we went from doing 20 plus projects at a time to where our new buying strategy said we will never do more than 10 at a time. But that's active rehabs. That means we had to do less, right? I also let go of that project manager and other people. And so I reduced the size of my team. Yeah. I also then made my team profit share only instead of salary. So that way, if we did no projects, I didn't have to stress about overhead. Like we just changed a bunch of stuff dramatically so that we can go travel. And in 2018, we did 6 months, right? We traveled 6 months.
That's awesome.
And in 2019, we did the same thing. In 2020 sucked, but then we moved to Maui instead because we couldn't travel. So, but it's all about making those decisions early on. And just doing it and being okay with it and not caring what other people think. That's probably the biggest one. So,
I mean, I think that new investors can get on that too. It's lifestyle by design. Like you said, like the crux to that is like design your life first, what Thatch told you, and then fit your business around that. That makes perfect sense. I mean, I think that's what, we want. You have kids, you want them to have those same ideals also, so they don't maybe feel the same way that they have to get into the rat race like a lot of us did, when we were younger.
One more thought on that, though, to what you're saying is true. I know I've heard people say this about Thatch, for instance. Oh, that's good for Thatch to do that now because he's already grinded and he's already done it. Right. So that's a cop out, in my opinion. Yeah. It's, he needed that perspective. Yes, he did grind. I grinded in my business too, just like Thatch. And I needed that perspective to realize, wait, I could have done it a different way. our new businesses that we've started, I'm not grinding in because I'm doing it the right way now when we're starting out. And we have 4 companies. So it's like, each business is easier for me because I am doing it by setting the goals first. I am doing it by saying, what do I want to do in this business? And if it's not everything, which it's not, that means I have to, from the gate, have the idea of delegating everything else and having processes right away and finding key people early on, or else I'm going to have to do it, which is not my goal. So I don't have to grind in like our hard money company at all. I work an hour a week in that because it's the newest business. So I set it up right the first time by using all the shit I grinded on for years in my real estate business and going, that didn't work, right? Yeah. So it's not a cop out. Like you can't say like, oh, just because you grinded. Like, no, we have perspective, right? And so learn from our perspective to realize that like you might have to grind your ass off at some point. We all do, right? At some point, no matter what. Yeah, dude, if the sky's falling, you got to keep moving, right? But as soon as you know better, like start doing it the right direction. Have that goal, like knowing that you're going to get yourself out of your business if that's what you want. Or you got from my friend Jimmy, which we talked about, James Standard. He's been to a number of mine and Brandon's masterminds, and I remember the 2021 one that he went to, where he was just like, everybody was like, I want lifestyle. He's like, I don't want lifestyle. Like, I want to work. Like, now. So, and I'll never forget that he said that. But,
there is. There's like a conflict of like, who's being lazy and who wants stuff for nothing, and who wants to work and do the stuff that they really like. Like if that's what he likes, I like working. I just need to work more efficiently on only stuff that I love and not the stuff that annoys me because somebody else can do that. That's what we're all learning over the time frame is like, even if someone can do it 80% as good as I can, that's great because I can have the time free to do something that will increase my income or knowledge or relationships, a different way.
Yeah, spot on.
Man. Awesome. So where's the best place for people to get in touch with? Is it on Instagram?
Well, if they want to get actually DM me, then Instagram at Tarl Yarber. You can also go to tarlyarber.com. Sign up for my newsletter.
That's a text letter, right? So tell us about the newsletter because the overall course of life, I hate newsletters, but I love good newsletters, and I already know that yours is a good newsletter.
You can find out if you sign up for it. Yeah, but it's a text letter newsletter thing, but it was meant to be like shorter, but it's not. Like I actually write on it, so like it's every newsletter I write, and it's broken into a couple sections. One is like it's market WTF. And it's my perspective on what I'm seeing and I guess the biggest thing that the events company has done for me is it's made me friends with a lot of like very intelligent people that I normally wouldn't have access to. So I get to see what they're doing in their investment business. I get to see what's actually happening out on the streets, not just what's happening in the news. So I'll write about that, right? Like, and it's usually it's once a week. So I'm writing that. I also have an inside the trenches section where I'm like writing about my business and what I'm really seeing on the streets. Like right now I'm opening up a couple markets. So I'm like, and I also talk to a lot of boots on the ground people. So it's me actually writing more about my perspective, what's really, really going on the streets. And then I have some other stuff like I'll do like I said, I'm a recovered house flipper. So I have a whole section called my road to recovery. And it's satirical for sure, but it's actually, there's some truth to it. We're starting a group called Flippers Anonymous right now. and it's a total like, we're going to, hey, you're addicted like me, like you're in a safe space. Like, so that's all happening as we speak currently. And I've wanted to do that group for a while, ever since we shut down our meetups in 2020. I missed the kind of fun aspect of that community. So I'm like, Flippers Anonymous. That sounds great. Let's do that. You get like coins, like we're gonna give coins out like for, hey, you bought your 10th rental, so you get a coin, or you bought your 10th flip or whatever. Right. We're just gonna have fun with it. So, and then there'll be random other stuff that we share there and everything too. So that's what we do.
Awesome. So you can find that at tarlyarber.com. And that's the same Instagram account that you'll find Tarl. Awesome, man. Thanks so much. I'm glad we did get to meet up at BPCon for that second I caught you in the calls. I'm like, hey, it's me. I was the one emailing you because BPCon is like so crazy. I hadn't met so many people in person. So it's like you're looking at each other like, is that who I think it is?
Your profile is a picture of a dog, so I didn't know what your face was. Like,
right. Like, how am I supposed to know?
That's my favorite.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you spending the time. Yeah, and I look forward to staying in touch too. Hopefully, we'll see each other at some of these events again soon.
Thanks, Jonathan. Appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome, man. All right, that was Tarl Yarber. I'm Jonathan Green. We'll see you next week. I hope you enjoyed that episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with me, Jonathan Green. And I just want to remind you, and this is always an uncomfortable part, I don't want you to think that I'm begging for you to like, subscribe, follow, do whatever you have to do for the podcast, leave a 5-star review. But if you like the podcast and you think it adds value in the real estate investing sphere, then just do me a personal favor. Like the podcast, follow it, share it when you can with your friends, and be so kind as to write a 5-star review if you believe it deserves a 5-star review up against what else is out there. I would really appreciate it, and I hope you keep listening.